live every time.
Back at it again with another episode of the BINDLE Boys.
I'm Andy.
I'm Kyle.
Holy shit.
We're gonna be talking about the meaning of life.
That's what was that, episode 2? I'm pretty sure that's what you said at the beginning of episode 2.
Yeah, I think so.
2 or 3.
It's been a while, honestly. I think it's been like 2 years.
Since the first podcast, yeah. I was looking through all of the posts from like a while back today. When I was done with work, I just sat through and was just going through all of the posts. I do that from time to time. It's kind of fun to...
Yeah, I see like you resurface some photos from like... days prior or years prior.
Yeah, I did it for my own personal
posts.
My own personal Instagram too. I don't know why either. Well, I think it was because you were saying like let's podcast and talk about like everything and where we're at and kind of, I don't know. We haven't like had a conversation like this in a while, so I was like, I should probably remind myself of what's happened up to this point.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I think it's been a good year since the last time we talked about just anything, really.
Right, just
like we spent a lot of time when you were at your parents' house. Yeah, that was about a year ago, and we kind of had a lot of meetings where we would talk about stuff going on, and then I think you went to the gear factory.
Yeah. No, because,
like
a year ago. Yeah. So
7-8 months ago. And then ever since you've moved in here, like, we haven't had a sit-down meeting in a while.
It's been an interesting, like, it's funny because, you know, since we started, we've only lived in the same area, like, for a very short amount of time. Mm-hmm. And even when I moved back here, it was still kind of like... It's funny because this is the first time that we're actually living in the same place, so... just like being able to do shit and talk more frequently is a lot better or easier, I should say. Is that the right word? Yeah.
Because even when we had the first idea for Boho Hobo, we were still like at college. School.
We started when when you were a senior in college.
Yeah, I was at Binghamton. You were in Albany.
Yeah.
I graduated, went back to my parents' house. You were still at school for a year. Mm-hmm. You were still trying to like figure out what you were going to do after school. And then you went to Burlington, right?
Yeah, but that was like 6 or 7 months after I graduated. So I was home for a while with you that summer. Yeah, it's very interesting. Like the time and how much has happened since... I mean, I was listening to like the very first podcast we did in the car ride from... Philly.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like...
That was a year ago?
No, that was 2 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I know.
That didn't seem like
that was long. 2 years ago. And I'm just like, damn, we're so young and... well, I mean, it's 2 years.
We're still young.
Yeah, but it's just funny to see us, like, try to do a podcast for the first time. And... how on the fly it was and not planned at all. And now, you know, we listened to the podcast that you posted today with Cam.
Did you and Cam sat down and listened to it?
No, I just listened to some of it on my own time. I was going to listen through it all the way, but then I saw that there was a Joe Rogan podcast with Tony Hawk.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, ooh. I haven't heard this.
Did you listen to the whole thing?
I'm like halfway through it right now.
Oh, nice.
I started it like the whole day of work, but it's really cool. Like I'm not, like I knew a lot of the stuff that they're talking about, but it's still cool to hear it from the source. Tony Hawk, like one of the greatest skateboarders of all time. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I guess that's why I'm wearing Thrasher, even though definitely not why, but yeah. No, but it's cool. Just
see the growth.
Yeah, like
I think that's like one of the reasons why I wanted to have this sit down is like we said, we had a good year span of not having like an in-depth kind of like run through of what's going on. So it kind of like catch us up to speed, and like obviously our thought process has probably changed since then as far as like what
or maybe
we
not
wanna
like
do,
completely changed, but adapted.
Yeah.
To because obviously like neither you nor I could have predicted like what we're going through right now. You know,
that's true.
It's kind of like a unique situation to kind of take a time to reflect, for sure. Because I even remember I made that video on Instagram at the beginning of the year 2020, like thanking everyone and like talking about hitting the new decade strong, and then just bam, pandemic.
Got all these festivals planned, got the merch, got the matcha, and then
yeah dude, it's
can't stop a global pandemic.
Yeah, it's very interesting to think about. Who knows what we would be doing, what we would have done last weekend, or like this past weekend, Memorial Day weekend, was 1 year from Gather Outdoors, which I'm not saying we would have necessarily done that festival again, but like we could have been doing a festival.
Right. Yeah, and now we're not going to be doing any of them, and
they just kind of fell off the radar because they're not going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe not even in this year. We might have to wait till next year. We might have to wait until 2021 before we can actually start thinking about doing events.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me because in like foresight, it would have been nice to know that this was going to happen. Because thinking about things like maybe we could have saved money on not re-upping an inventory if we're not going to be able to go and sell it.
Right.
Shit like that.
And film equipment instead.
Right, and it's like, yes, it's great and all that we have inventory, but now we're kind of sitting on a lot of it because, we're not at a point where our website's, like, making shit tons of sales every day. And also, I had this conversation today. It's kind of a luxury right now for people to just go buy clothes, I don't think it's
that's what everyone's doing, like buying shit off Amazon. True,
it's interesting. Like, I feel like people are still buying shit from Amazon, but not necessarily from...
Well, I guess I can speak for myself, but, like, I've been spending more on Amazon in these past 2 months. Granted, I just moved, but most I've ever spent in my life during this time.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that I have a job still. But still, like, who knows what'll happen, and it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to just save cash right now. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I are in a unique position where we're not, like, our life doesn't depend on the brand right now. So in that sense, my stress level is a lot lower than maybe a lot of other business owners who put everything they have into their brand, and so if it doesn't work, then they're fucked. Whereas like you and I have a backup plan essentially, which
definitely.
I mean, like a fail safe almost. It's like regardless of what's going on, we still have some stream of income to keep us churning. And not being like, well, I'm not going to spend any more time on this because X, Y, or Z.
We always have a conversation about like bashing college and everything like that, but for me personally, like I'm very grateful I went, and I think
same.
The message shouldn't be just super black, super white of like you should go to college, you should not go to college, and that's what you should do, but more so like being... There's definitely a nuance in it, but you should just be thoughtful of like what you want to be doing, understanding that it's a financial investment, and then trying to make a return on that investment, seeing it from a business perspective. If like, let's say you do have a side craft, side hobby that you want to pursue, is like do something that you somewhat enjoy, or you don't even have to enjoy it, but just like something that pays the bills. And using college to that advantage, maybe not going for that liberal arts degree that's not going to get you shit because of you got this 4-year bachelor's degree.
I feel like this, maybe what I'm about to say is not necessarily ideal for everyone, but maybe someone who wants to get into entrepreneurship.
Definitely targeting that population here.
use college as a tool to find a path that maybe it's not something you're super like hyped on. You know, it might not be the thing that's gonna bring you complete fulfillment in life, but it's something that you know you're smart enough to do, and it's gonna make you decent money. So, you know, are you gonna have to, you know, trade some time? You know, maybe
get that degree, you mean?
Well, that. But I'm saying you might have to, you know, trade some of your time at a 9-to-5 type job to get funds to allow you to, you know, pursue your real passion, which maybe that's art or being like a professional pianist or something like.
Yeah.
Having a solid backup like we're talking about. Yeah. Where if Boho Hobo, you know, fell apart and ceased to exist for whatever reason, you and I would still be fine because we have set up this kind of backup system, if you will, where, you know, if push came to shove, I would find a way to enjoy, you know, the industry I'm in, or maybe find a different path within it to make myself happier. But at least I'm not like, oh, if the brand fails, like, I'm in the shitter.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth to this idea, but I think you definitely hit it. What was it? Hit the nail on the head. It's tough because everyone's situation is different, obviously. But, like, let's say, not a lot of people want to go the route of entrepreneurship either. So, like, this message doesn't really cater to that. But, like, if you do want to go through entrepreneurship, and, like, even right now with COVID, we have a lot more downtime. Well, I can't say that necessarily because we're still working full-time.
Yeah. Well, maybe we have more downtime in the sense that we're not spending as much time outside, like hanging out with people and doing things that could potentially pull us away from being able to like work on stuff.
Right. We have a little bit more downtime to just like focus on our craft and stuff like that, but we're still not going 100%. At least I don't think so. We could definitely be pushing the envelope a little bit more and putting in more time invested into like trying to build Boho Hobo. But we don't have to, that's the thing. So it's like this little thing of having that safe net where it kind of like allows you to have your side hustle be a passion project and not necessarily the thing that you are surviving off of. Because in a sense with that, it kind of draws away from the passion and you end up leaving yourself vulnerable to doing things that might be shady, that you don't necessarily like agree with your beliefs, you know, because you need to make money.
Yeah, true.
I think we're in a good spot. I would recommend it to other people and just going through this process and just, you know, we interview a bunch of different entrepreneurs and creatives, and it always seems like what we have is a luxury. But at the same time, it's
like what you and I have.
Yeah, having the brand as a side hustle, we don't have to survive off of it. We can pursue it as a passion more so, and like this like self-exploration thing as a project. We can go 110% in it. It's gonna require you to go through your day job and then come home and then fire on all cylinders. We can do that. And then it kind of like is up to you, like if you do see opportunity in it, or if you do see that there is going to be it kind of like puts it in perspective, right? Because you have your day job and you come home, and if you're not pushing yourself to want to do that passion project, then maybe you should reassess and be like, oh, maybe that's not for me either.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to me because not that I do this, but I find myself wanting to spend time on what we're doing during the day more than I want to spend it on the job. And I would say more times than not, I refrain from doing that because I know I'm not supposed to do that.
Right. Because you're on
but
the
from
clock
time
right
to
now.
time, I'll like slip in a couple things where I can like edit something real quick if I have like a minute or whatever. But it's like during those times, I'm like, yes, like this is what I want to be doing, and this is great. But also, I realize like it would be a completely different scenario if I didn't have a job. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Just playing out that scenario in your head of if Boho Hobo was something that we needed to survive off of, we'd be worrying more about sales than the actual like art creative projects.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's interesting to me is, we live in a building with a ton of artists. In not COVID time, a lot
have to have a job.
Well, a lot of them don't have jobs, or they do like interesting things to make money. Maybe not like a full-blown 9-to-5.
Like a Uber or
like an Uber or Lyft, or like they work at a grocery store to get by, and then they do their art. Some are trying to just make their art work for them. And I don't really know everyone's personal finances, so I'm not sure. I can't speak on anyone's behalf in terms of like how that's going for them. But it's interesting to think that you and I are, I would say, a little bit different than some of the other entrepreneurs here, at least, in the fact that you and I have
that foundation,
that foundational like backup 9-to-5 job that's making us money to allow us to do things that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Whether that's buy camera equipment or go on a trip out west so we can get content. Like expand the brand kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely a luxury.
In either scenario, I don't think there's there's good and bad to both scenarios.
Yeah.
Essentially, and just playing it out in my head with the scenario of not having a full-time job, your art being your main craft that you're surviving off of, you're gonna have more time to focus on that because you don't have the 9-to-5. But at the same time, you're going to be more stressed out with the financial end. And it's interestingly enough with that scenario, if your full-time was your passion project, maybe for those 8 hours that you would be spending at, like, let's say working at Aldi's, you'd be focusing those 8 hours on how to get sales for your business. And then for the 5 hours after that day, you'd be focusing on your actual like creative process of like making content to post on Instagram or social. So it's like the same scenarios playing out here. We have the 8 hours where we're working our 9-to-5, and we at least have the comfort to know that we'll always have that financial safeguard. And then the 5 hours that we're not working at our full time, we'll have the creative process. Yeah. So just like playing out those scenarios, potentially we might be in the similar situation as far as like having that equal balance of like trying to get money and then trying to work on our creative. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we have it good too because we have the comfort of knowing that it's always going to be there too. Whereas like if you're full-time is your creative project, then you're going to have to be like hustling to do like Grubhub, Ubers, that things that are a little bit more unorthodox.
Yeah. If I was doing, say, like a Grubhub or Uber, I feel like the time I was spending at doing that would be mindless. Like, I don't know what value I would be getting out of it, not non-monetary, during that time that would help build upon what we're doing. Whereas my job, although I may not fully enjoy it to like the best that I could, I find things that come from the job that I can take with me towards the brand. So like I find a silver lining in what I do where it's like worth it. where it's not like, damn, I'm literally just doing mindless shit just to get by so I can work on my passion project. Because then I firmly believe in trying to limit the amount of time you waste as much as possible, and I'm pretty bad at it, but like it's something that I want to be good at and better at, and I think everyone should try to be better at, is like, that feeling of, people joke about it, they're like, oh, I feel like a piece of shit if I like watch 3-4 episodes on Netflix in a row. You start to like feel like a bum or whatever.
Well, a lot of that's like FOMO, like fear. You're like on Instagram while you're watching Netflix,
yeah,
and you're like, all these people are doing this.
Well, I shouldn't say like that's not necessarily true, right? You may not actually be a bum. It's okay to relax and spend your time however you want, but if you want to achieve something that is going to take effort and time to get it done, maybe you should reevaluate. That feeling of, damn, I feel like a bum. Maybe you should use that to kick you into gear. Be like, what could you be doing instead of watching this next episode on Netflix when this episode's done? Can you go work on a painting, or go edit a video, or go write a script for a movie? There's endless ideas that could come about.
And why aren't we doing that? That's a good question. Because if that's your passion project and you're finding more enjoyment, let's hypothetically say you're getting more enjoyment out of watching Netflix, then really is that your passion? Like, are you really going to want to be doing that for your full time too? It might look good on paper that you're a screenwriter, a musician, but like, do you actually find fulfillment from that? Or is it more fulfilling to just watch Ozark?
Yeah, that's a good question to ask. Or is it not necessarily that you're not passionate about it, you're afraid? Like, I feel like some people are afraid. They have like limiting beliefs that makes them feel like no matter how much work they put into their thing, they're never going to achieve their dream level of success. So they kind of slip into habits of, like, it doesn't matter anyways. I'm gonna just go watch this episode, like, whatever.
Maybe their motivation is for the reasons. I don't want to say the wrong reasons, but yeah, essentially.
But maybe not fully the right reasons.
Like, maybe they're not enjoying the process of it. Like, I think that's really important to figure out, is just like, what do you enjoy? What are your interests? What do you like enjoy the act of doing? Not necessarily the reward that's associated with that act of doing.
You said this in the first podcast we did that I listened to. And I kind of wanted to like bring it back to this now that we're like getting.
Yeah, because we've gone through this process. We've seen so many different situations now. This is good to kind of like find this conclusion as to like what is our path and what do we want to pick from all these different perspectives to push ourselves
You're hitting on
forward. What
you said, that like there's like 3 things to finding like happiness within, like fulfillment in your life, and it's like 1, like having something that you're passionate about. 2, knowing who you are. And then 3, like having like a skill that you want to be like good at. So you like have something that gives you something that gives you reason for like doing it. Like what's your like something you're passionate about, like whether that's like a message you want to send or something you want to create that like brings you a sense of like fulfillment. And then you like tie that message or reasoning with a skill, and then also like that would then tie into you being self-aware, because you're identifying something you're passionate about and something you want to be good at the same time, like that work together.
And then adding that like personality component.
Yeah.
Or that kind of like is a part of
right, and then it's like tripling down on it and being like as best as you can. So like, for example, recently, and I've known this for a while, like that the filming side of things and editing is really where I want to spend the most of my time. I feel that looking at, you know, the video, the snowboard video I just made, and compared it to like one of the early videos of Boho Hobo. I mean, it's like a stark difference in detail and quality, presentation, if you will.
So that would be your craft, the third one.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like my passion being like Boho Hobo, like our life, and trying to help share what we do and what makes us tick, and the podcast and all that. That's kind of like the passion, is spreading that message.
So that would be the one?
Yeah.
Like the reason?
Mm-hmm. So like sharing the messages of all the different creators that come through our show and spread their, you know, their philosophies of life, and then building it on top of what we believe in, and kind of just keeping an open platform for all people to confide in, and then using film or media to garner the attention of those people. And maybe it's not gonna get everyone to fully invest in what we do, but maybe for a brief moment we may get someone who's never seen anything that we've done before and watch something for a while, and maybe they like it, and that's the end of that transaction. But we still touched that person's life for a second, made an impression on them.
Right.
And that's what I care about. I think sometimes there's not necessarily a need for financial value from what you're doing to reach fulfillment. You know, like you say that money is like a tool and not necessarily like the reason to live.
Well, I think like people always want $1 million, but like once you get that $1 million, what are you actually using it for? Are you doing it because you want, I don't know, you put it into investments so you can make passive income off it? Or are you just going to use it to buy a, I don't know, Lamborghini? I don't even know how much Lamborghinis are. But you buy a fast car or like a nice house. So it's like, yeah, $1 million is nice, but it's not necessarily the cash that has the value in it. It's like what you're going to get from using that cash.
Yeah.
So the cash being a tool.
Money doesn't really have intrinsic value. It's pretty like easy to feel detached from what money is.
Yeah. It's useful. Like, it's useful, but I think the main issue that people have is not necessarily like that they're poor, it's that they don't know what they want to do with their life if they did have the money. Yeah. And that's why I think maybe a lot of like super rich businessmen feel like detached from themselves, even though they have this mansion and like fast car, all this money, because all of those material things isn't what like it gives them fulfillment.
Yeah,
it's more so like the craft or the creative, the skills and talents that you're building.
I mean, think of like someone who inherits their, you know, their family's business. That's a really well-to-do business, you know, that's been around for a while and it makes a lot of money. You inherit that because financially it makes sense, right? It's something that's already guaranteeing cash flow into your life, and you've been around it your whole life, so you know the ropes. So it's just kind of like a no-brainer. But who's to say that that's what you're really passionate about? It just may be the easiest option you have. And that's interesting to think like a lot of people fall in that route where it's like not necessarily what they want to do. They just feel like they would be dumb if they didn't do it.
So, I mean, like we've interviewed a bunch of people. Have you been seeing any common themes? Because that's another reason why I wanted to meet up today is like we're doing Bindleism, we do the podcast, but we never have that time to kind of like debrief on the episodes that we're doing. And it's like very insightful stuff. And like one thing I'm trying to figure out is like what is the theme or the blueprint to be able to figure out your passion? Because all the things that the people are doing on Bindleism they're passionate about it. But how do they get to that point?
I feel like the theme I've seen is that it's not an overnight process. it's something that takes your lifetime. It's passions are built off of a lifetime of experiences, you know? Like, we always talk about, like, what does it mean to be human, and understanding the human condition, and all of that stuff. And it's like, being human is to, like, it's to take all of the individual experiences that each individual person has in their life to create something of meaning or value. And maybe that's not necessarily positive meaning, may be bad.
Like an insecurity.
The experience. Well, I'm saying sometimes people's experiences lead to a bad outcome.
Like self-sabotage.
Yeah, I mean, like, you could become a Mexican drug lord.
Oh, okay.
You know? Or you could become a mafia member. Maybe mafias aren't, like, as prevalent anymore, but you get what I'm saying. Like, you could go down that route, or your experiences could take you to Hollywood, or you could become a welder. Like, it could, but it's through experiences and growth
and traumas.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yeah, that's a good.
That's insightful. And I think that, you know, what you and I do, and maybe why we're on the path we're on, is because we had a lot less traumas than most people. So we're kind of spreading this message of, you know, peace and love and introspection, and in this, I don't want to say that it seems like we're not, that we don't understand those people's points of views, or that we're being naive to it, but I think we're just showing that there is,
like, a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Like we always, like, no matter how bad someone has it, even, like, from listening to all these stories, we figure out a way to, like, flip it in, like, a optimistic way. And I think that's a very, cause like, subjectivity is very biased. Like, that's what subjectivity is bias. So, like, any experience that you have, you could always look at it two ways: really positive or really negative.
Yeah.
And same thing with traumas. You can find positivity in that.
Yeah.
But you just have to look at it from a different angle.
So maybe that's the theme. And I'm not gonna say, like, everyone has a similar story, but I feel like one thing I do take away from what we do is that we give people who have been through tough times a platform to air their grievances about it and be heard. You know, they're not just preaching to the choir or talking to someone who is sitting in front of them and letting them talk at them, but they're not necessarily listening to what they're saying. You know, a big thing with traumas is people want to be understood. And it's one thing to listen, but are you actually understanding what's being said to you?
Yeah, and it might take a 3-hour podcast to get the job done.
Well, I mean, think about it. Most people don't go and get therapy when they have, like, issues. They just bottle that shit up, and they're afraid to tell anyone because they don't know who to trust. And I feel that something that you and I have developed over time is a skill to allow people to open up and trust, even if it's for a brief moment in time, right? 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours may seem long in the short term, but in the long term, that's a very brief moment, you know? But in those brief moments that we have with these people that we've met maybe for the first time, we get them to open up, and it almost feels like we're, like, pals for the longest of time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I take that as, like, this is why I do this. Like, I don't care if we ever, you know, if things never got to a point where, you know, we're living off of it full time, you know, maybe that's not ideal, right? Maybe that's not what I want the outcome to be, but if I know that I at least touched the lives of a bunch of people and made them feel understood and heard, and they can carry themselves higher after that conversation, then I'm happy, you know. I feel happy when I know that I've helped other people achieve that happiness, because, like I said, I don't know many traumas, and that's like an issue I've had recently in relationships, is I have a hard time understanding people and their traumas because I've never gone through those traumas before, so it's hard to relate. But I know that that's a blessing, and not just like, oh, I'm not understanding. That's like, no, damn, I need to realize, like, I'm just super lucky, and I have to be grateful for the fact that I didn't have to go through those things. And I see life in a brighter way than a lot of people, I think. And I probably could say the same for yourself. Like, our lens, our perspective of life is definitely different than people who've seen, like, some fucked up shit.
We definitely had it easy compared to what it could have been. And definitely thankful for our parents for, like, giving us that support.
Yeah.
And giving us opportunity. Like me, I spent most of my childhood playing soccer, and my father taking me to all these soccer games and stuff. Not a lot of people have that luxury, you know. People, let's say they're growing up downtown Syracuse on, like, South Salina, where housing is pretty impoverished, you know.
Yeah.
Father's not home, mother's doing drugs. They're not having any support. Where are they getting their learning from? From the streets, you know? But the interesting thing is that even if we didn't grow up in that environment, we still have this sense of being able to understand.
Yeah.
Understand their emotions, because it's like, yeah, maybe my life wasn't that bad on paper compared to what they're going through, but we still have felt those emotions of hardship and stuff. Maybe not as in depth.
Right, not in that intense, but yes, on a smaller scale.
And it's not necessarily as like the empathy of feeling what they're going through, but just trying to hear them out and trying to piece their story together and finding reasons why they feel that way. And it's not necessarily trying to say that they're right or wrong for feeling what they're feeling either. Right. But it's more so trying to understand, okay, you have this feeling of intense tragedy, and you're telling us the story. Maybe that's the reason why you felt that way. Maybe the certain situation that happened to you is the reason why you feel that way. And it's just trying to, like, piece the story together. Like, a lot of people, if they're in it, they might not be making those connections.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's about feeling understood. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people that want to be understood don't understand themselves. And, I mean, I think of, suicide. People become dissociated with life, and they feel that it might be easier to just not be here at all than to, like, deal with it. But I feel that sense of being understood brings them back to themselves, because in result of being understood by someone else, usually the things that you're talking about are being reflected back to you.
They're validated.
So they say something, and the other person more or less repeats what they said back to them, so that they understand that the other person is, like, fully grasping and understanding what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, shit, like, you actually understand what I'm saying. I'm not, like, this crazy person. Like, you get it.
Yeah.
And that sense of validation makes them feel good. It makes them feel like what they're saying isn't bullshit or like fictional. It's real, tangible, something that they can put value on.
Yeah.
Right? That experience of human existence.
I had this insight this idea the other day that something isn't like you could be thinking in your head all day, like running ideas through your head, having these emotions, spinning the wheels of your brain, but until you actually communicate it, that subjective experience stays subjective. Until you communicate it, that's when it becomes objective. And now there's actual quote unquote data or information that's out there that people can actually like be able to understand. So that just that act of being in your head all the time and being in your subjective experience is very like it's isolating.
Yeah.
You feel alone.
Exactly.
You feel disconnected. Mm-hmm. But until we actually speak that out, then you feel that connection. And especially if you're being heard. So, like, I always have this, like, thought process of, like, things that are subjective and objective. And, like, subjectivity is, like, our internal experience. And our objectivity is, like, what's external to us. And it's, like, we need that transition from subjectivity to objectivity to be feeling heard and to feel connected. And that kind of like takes us out of that like mental trauma that we're experiencing. And just like that's why I think like journaling is very helpful. It's therapeutic.
Because you're taking it out of that subjective space and making it a physical idea.
Yeah, it makes it real, like you were saying. I don't really understand why that's helpful, but I just know that there's experiences of people doing that. It helps. And maybe that's why. Well, because it's like a sense of reality. Feeling rooted, like grounded in reality.
Right. Because think about it. People have traumas happen to them. Say you were raped or someone did something vile to you. And you don't feel okay to tell anyone because you're afraid of reactions or whatever it may be. And you bottle that up in your subjective space where it now becomes this like almost this thing that you don't even know if it is real or not. You know, over time, if you don't like tell anyone right away and try to be understood,
and you like beat yourself up.
You're just like and then like over time you think you're the enemy when in fact it's really the experience that happened to you needs to be talked about.
And that's why we have therapy groups. Right.
So I think it's really important to, well, one, if you're dealing with that stuff, to go talk about it. I know that's easier said than done, but ideally speak it out and try to be understood. Mm-hmm. But on our end, being people who don't have necessarily a bunch of traumas that we need to like deal with, is how can we help those people? Provide a platform to allow people to be heard. And not everyone who comes on the show has gone through crazy traumas, but I feel like a decent amount have seen at least one or two of their own fair share of shitty things that happen to them.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily either that they have to be recorded. It's just like the whole idea of Boho Hobo is like trying to create a community of open-mindedness so we can have these conversations.
So this is even stuff we're doing outside of the podcast, just like in our day-to-day when we're talking. And I think that's why we're so good at making connections with people, because they feel like they're being understood and we're not just talking, we're not having this superficial conversation with them because they walked into our booth for the minute. I think it's always interesting that we're never like trying to sell people on our clothes or whatever, that we just talk to them about anything. We break the ice and then we start talking with them, and by the end of it they're like, damn, like I want to buy something from you guys, just because they feel validated and everything that they were just talking about. They feel obligated almost to return that favor, even though we're not necessarily being asked to do that. I think we're just subconsciously good at it.
Well, I think we are just naturally like that, and like we're naturally that way, and then we made the business, and since we're the business, then it kind of carries so forth. But yeah, I would say that's pretty insightful.
That's one thing that's taking a little hit on me right now during this whole COVID thing is I love the connections we make, and I love going to events. I like that new experience, making that festival recap video, talking to people face to face, people that have never heard of us before, and talking about the brand or talking about them, and making new connections with people. And I feel like right now we're very limited in what new connections we can make in the physical world. Maybe virtually we can make new connections, but I don't thrive in that space.
Yeah.
In connection building.
I was watching a Gary Vee video the other day, and he said that, well, the whole coronavirus thing happened, and everyone, including him, switched over to Zoom. So instead of him going to do speaking, live events, and conferences, he was just doing everything through Zoom. And he identified that he was able to make the same depth of conversations and insight through Zoom that he was having at these live events and conferences. And so, like, he had this conversation with this girl, and he was saying that I'm never going back. Like, this is what I'm going to be doing now, from now on. It's more time efficient. Like, I'm able to have more impact on multiple people just sitting from the comfort of my home. And it's like, maybe we should do that. Like, open up a open source platform for people to just, like, drop in and, like, shoot the shit. Like, I don't really know how we would structure it, but I thought that after hearing him and just identifying with what we're doing, it's like we do have the potential to delve down that avenue. We're like a communications platform, but like on a deeper level of trying to understand like the human condition. So how do we like present that in a way that's welcoming on a digital platform?
Well, I think something that could be cool is like doing Instagram Live or Facebook Live. Maybe I don't like Facebook Live, but like something like Instagram Live, and then allowing people who come into the live and are watching to join the conversation. Like literally we can accept them into the live, and now we're like interviewing them maybe for like a few minutes.
Oh, so like to be meta here, like we're filming us talking, but on top of that we could be having
live
this conversation, but still have
other people could be a part of it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously,
so then they can listen in on this conversation.
Right. So like this conversation is kind of more personal, where like it's more like maybe outside like more people outside of this conversation, in terms of like experience wise, aren't going to be able to have as much input on what we're talking about, because we're talking about our personal experiences mostly right now. Mm-hmm. But maybe if we're talking about something more specific, like if we're going to do a Facebook or Instagram Live about emotional intelligence, or about self-empowerment, or like whatever that topic is, and we announce it, and then we just go live, and maybe we get 5 people, maybe we get 100 people, you know?
Right,
But if we just keep doing it on like a schedule, where it's like we're going live every other day for an hour or two.
Even like we were planning on having this conversation anyways, so like we could just, for our benefit, make it into a podcast, and like what if no one shows up, whatever,
they can still listen to it.
Yeah, and we'll still like kill 2 birds with 1 stone by having it be made into a podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just like trying to be efficient.
Right now is really about, we're identifying that people aren't really spending money on like luxuries right now. I mean, I would consider buying clothes as a luxury, and they're more spending money on necessities. Mm-hmm. I think more so than, I mean, yes, people are on unemployment, but at some point that's going to run out, and then people are going to really not be able to spend money on things. And I don't want to be like an alarmist and make people feel uncomfortable, but that's my personal belief that that's where this is going. That things are going to get worse before they get better, at least financially across the board.
I think it's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah, so like right now what I'm getting at is that we're identifying that maybe the clothes or selling the matcha even isn't going to be sustainable in the short term because of that. But creating content will always be a viable thing that we can do, right? We don't.
Yeah, definitely.
It doesn't rely on anyone else other than you and me to be done. So why not double or triple down on creating content and garnering some attention towards what we're doing, Yes, it's good and all to have the clothes and the matcha, and we'll probably still make sales here and there as we go.
But the value's in the content, more so.
But we're here to spread a message and get people. People aren't just going to buy a shirt or matcha from us because, well, maybe they'll buy the matcha because they like matcha, but maybe they won't buy the clothes unless they feel a sense of relatability or attachment to what we're doing. Find value in the content that we're providing, and they feel like, damn, yeah, I really identify with this. So having open source conversations with people about topics that are relatable to the mass public would be a good start, I think.
I think this conversation's coming full circle. Like, we started off talking about like how to find your passion, and maybe that's a good place to start. Is like have a conversation where we talk about like, I don't know, self-awareness and shifting your perspective, emotional intelligence, and like how do you actually go about finding your purpose? Because everyone talks about it, but how many people actually end up finding it and stuff? And like even us, we're still figuring it out too. Yeah. So we can't like come off in this way of like, you got to do this. And I don't think even if you do know how to do it, you can't go about it that way. But still, like, we're all in this together kind of thing, and we're trying to figure it out together. Yeah. Is a good way to approach it.
I just don't want people who maybe don't necessarily have an entrepreneurship venture or even like a passion that they've figured out to feel discouraged from wanting to be a part of a conversation like that. You know? Like, I feel like some people feel detached from what we do because they don't have something like that going for them. But it's like, but they still follow us. So there's something about us that's still relatable to them, or they wouldn't follow us, or they wouldn't like our stuff.
Well, we're talking about human values. Everyone's a human, obviously, that's watching it. So that's a good topic, too.
So I think...
Do you think, like, having a passion is a human thing to have?
I mean...
Because if that's the case, then maybe everyone should... I mean, I don't want to say but maybe everyone should have a passion.
I think that having a passion increases your quality of life.
Okay, yeah, that's
fair. And again, like I said before, it may not be a positive passion, right? Some people are passionate about cannibalism, but it brings some sense of
value
to them, right? And in that,
and
maybe
it's intrinsic value.
Maybe to that individual person, it makes them feel good to be alive, and they want to like live still. Not condoning cannibalism, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
figure out
the spectrum works all things. Maybe that's you like collecting, coins, or you like skipping rocks. Like, it could be fucking anything. I just think having that something that gets you to wake up in the morning, or it gets you through the day, because it's always like, well, you know what? Work may suck today, but when I'm done with this, I can go do this thing that I really fucking love.
Yeah.
And it'll make me forget about all the bullshit from today.
Yeah, definitely. It's just interesting that we are even having this conversation. Because it seems... I don't know, it seems like everyone should have that. But it's not. I mean, I'm naive. I'm definitely naive.
But I think that's like a utopia. I think it's like it's a utopic idea to have everyone like having self-awareness, having something that they're passionate about, and something a skill that they want to be good at, that all work together.
Yeah.
I just think that takes a lot of work, and I don't think that I figured that out completely to a T, but I definitely think that I'm a lot farther ahead than most people just because
You think about it.
But yeah, we've been talking and thinking about this shit for like 3 years. So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I said before, and bring it back full circle, it's about the compilation of experiences, micro things, over time that create that thing, that
also,
passion. That's how you get
that's
to
a really
that.
good point, because it's like, because we're exposing ourselves to environments where there's other people in communities that have passions and stuff, projects going on, it like helps us figure it out, I think, exponentially quicker than if, let's say, one person is trying to like leave the pack of like no passion projects to try to do it themselves. It's like a lonely journey and they feel like an outcast.
Yeah, and
So
then
like,
most of those people, unless they're like savants, end up just not following through because they don't have any motivation, right? Like, maybe not all of them, but if you're trying to go it in alone, a lot of people don't maybe get as far as they could without having that network of...
okay, yeah. But at the same time, I think ultimately you need to figure it out on your own. No one's gonna be
Parts
able
of it,
to.
yes.
No one's gonna be able to tell you this is your passion or this is who you are. But like, I think that it can help to talk it out with other people, feel heard, and
Being
also
understood, yeah.
hearing other perspectives and putting yourself in experiences so you can kind of taste different different hobbies, interests, skills, talents, just to get an idea of like, oh, that shit exists out there. And like, I mean, it's cliche, but you don't know that you like something until you try it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's very true.
And it's like being open-minded enough too to like play the ideas. Like a lot of times people might have all these thoughts and things, but until they get it out and be validated, then maybe that's all they needed to feel confident in themselves to pursue something of that nature.
Yeah.
You talked about like silver lining earlier.
Yeah.
What were you alluding to with that?
Well, I was just saying that even in jobs that I don't necessarily fully like, I find a silver lining in them, where it's like...
Okay, yeah. I think that's important.
Well, yeah, because it's like... It's only a waste of time if you feel that it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
So, if you feel that in the moment that's the best opportunity you have at your disposal, but you still feel like you're wasting time, you should still try to like search all avenues. Like, I think unless you've searched all avenues and you've completely exhausted all potential opportunity within that situation to find value, you should try to find value in whatever you're spending your time on.
Okay.
Find things that you can take away
So
from
even
them.
though you hate your 9-to-5 job, let's say, there's still little bits and pieces, so focus your time on that.
Right. Well, think about it this way. If your livelihood, meaning you being able to pay your bills on time, revolves around needing this 9-to-5 job, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is your sole source of income, but you hate it. Spending all of your energy hating it instead of taking some sort of value from it.
Yeah.
You're okay, so you feel like you're wasting your time at that 9-to-5 and you hate it. Well, then you're like basically manifesting that energy into reality. Mm-hmm. That it is a waste of time and that you are not getting any value from it. But you could say, I don't necessarily like this situation, but here's a few small things that I am able to take away from it. So although I may not like it, I don't feel that I'm wasting my time completely.
Yeah, that's fair. Because there are small things. There's small victories, no matter how tough
it's like...
You like, I was listening to a TED Talk, and the guy was saying that, like, my whole day didn't suck. Like, there's bits and pieces that I enjoyed it. No day ever completely sucks. And this was a paraplegic, and he was talking about mindset and stuff. And he was just, like, flipping the switch. Like, instead of saying your whole day is terrible, like, just focus on the good that happened, because there is a lot of good, but we just take it for granted.
Yeah, and I mean, so today I was having a little bit of anxiety after work. I saw that you were out skateboarding, and I was thinking to myself, like, why am I not, like, outside doing something? Like, what could I be doing? Because I just kind of felt like, damn, I've just been inside all day. And I didn't end up going outside. I got this sense of anxiety that, like, came over me, that I didn't know what I should be doing with my time. And it's
FOMO, and that's what I think.
Well, yeah, a little bit of that FOMO. Well, I was
like
also
fear of missing out on like what you could be doing to like maybe be more.
Well, I was thinking like
efficient with your time or something.
I would be skateboarding right now if I didn't have a knee that was bum. So I was just like, damn, well, I can't go do that. So like, what could I do? And do I really want to go outside by myself? Like blah blah blah. And it quickly became overwhelming to me, where I was just like uncomfortable, and I decided to do a 10-minute meditation because I was just like, this is too much and I need to escape from this feeling that I know is not real. It's just like built up tension almost. So
you're talking about like from like mishaps from the day earlier?
Well, yeah, just like being stuck inside all day, every day for like the last 3 months, working from home, not being fully fulfilled with what I do, trying to still find things that are valuable, but still being stuck kind of doing this thing that I know I don't want to do forever, but I feel like in the short term it's forever. And so I meditated, and in that time, I was able to literally just take all my judgments about the issues and the situation that I'm in and just, like, push them away. And to just be okay with where I'm at right now. Like, I just think this sense of uncertainty right now is making it really easy for people to be susceptible to anxiety, because there is no right or wrong answer right now. It's just kind of all up in the air. We don't know what's right for everyone. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think that at least that reaction earlier was just like a bit of that 3 months of boiling up kind of hitting a point where I was just like, fuck. Like, I'm starting to feel it. I'm starting to feel what other people may have been feeling for a while. Maybe people who have been laid off from their jobs since the beginning of March and haven't worked since.
Yeah.
Maybe they've gotten to that point of, like, anxiety sooner, and they're, like, going through these, like, existential crisis moments almost of, like...
trying to find purpose.
Yeah, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I spent all day inside, like, doing this thing that I don't really like, and I want to, like, be out exploring or creating something, and it's just like, fuck. You know?
But then you don't know what you want to create.
Yeah.
Or like what to do with your extra time.
It's just like, I get it. Like, this shit is not easy. It is not easy at all. The
thing is with like this versus war, like war sucks, obviously. People are dying, but at least there's a sense of purpose as far as like what our nation should be doing. Yeah. With this, it's like, I'm just going to sit here and meditate. And try to
find peace in it. Literally, like, that's what I did today. I found peace in my inability to do anything about the current situation.
Yeah.
Basically just being okay with the fact that I can't do anything about it right now. And that's hard. That's like waving the white flag. I mean, you're not giving up, but you're giving up the energy spent on trying to control every aspect of what your life has going for it right now. Like, I can't control the fact that coronavirus could potentially go for 6-7 more months.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point.
It's just a thing that's happening to everyone, and I could spend all my energy focusing on how shitty it is and how annoying it makes life. Or I could find that silver lining and find value out of it, so it doesn't feel like I'm just wasting my life away, that there's some value coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it's kind of like my job is like a microcosm of like a pandemic, you know? Or vice versa.
Right.
You can take any of the shitty things that happen in your life and find some silver lining to take away from it to like make you a better person and move the needle forward.
Do you think that we need a bigger, not you specifically, but just humanity? Do you think we need a bigger reason to actually work on personal development? To actually put forth our time to like do a creative project or passion or even like finding self-awareness? Like it doesn't seem like as of now, especially now with like COVID, that people have a big enough opportunity to see on like
for
horizon
why they should start
for why they
something.
should even do something. And it's like it's
That's
so
a good point.
internal. Like we kind of have a sense of it because we've tasted it a little bit and been like, oh shit, that's good. Like fulfillment, that feels good.
Yeah.
But like saying this to someone that's never felt that before or even discounts it and is like, fuck the world. Yeah, like what is there out there? I guess in the practical world or like just opportunities in general that are like giving people good enough reason to go down this path.
I mean, I think that it shouldn't. None of that stuff should be rooted with this motive of needing to create financial value in their life.
Because that's the thing. It's like that's been around forever. Like this ability to you can just find your passion, pursue what you love, make money off of it. I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's the motivator there. Like getting rich from
people root all of the value of them going after this said passion on how much money it's gonna potentially make them, and they base all of their reactions on how the financial side of that endeavor is doing. When I think that really it should be, if what you're doing is valuable enough, the money will come by default.
And that's the issue there, because something could be valuable to you, but not valuable to the world, so you're not going to be able to make money. Like children, that's a very, very easy concept to understand. Like children, super valuable for you, but when they're infants, when they're growing up, how valuable are they to
Right,
men?
they're not really that valuable.
Not yet. Maybe long term they could be.
Right,
but
they're a long term investment.
Shit. And that's like what they're. That's another thing that we're not bringing up at all. Is that like a lot of people, they might feel trapped in a dead end job. They have a family that they need to support. They're working to get financial ability to feed their family. They go home. They just like spend all of their
time.
Yeah, they don't. That's the thing. They don't.
Yeah,
and, like
so,
we have
what
to
do
be
you
understanding
do?
of that.
So like, what do those
too.
people do? Like, I can't even imagine being in a situation. Well, that gives them purpose, though. Maybe that they have.
That is their creative project in a way.
They have to keep
their
people
passion
alive.
project.
You know, they're like caregivers in a way.
Or they become jaded and not give a shit about their kids, kind of thing, and they just go off and do their own thing. Which I mean, that happens too. Like the whole divorce thing happening.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. But I would say that another thing, though, is maybe instead of getting down on yourself and feeling like you're a failure, if you're going after a passion and it's not creating the financial value you thought it would, maybe that passion, although it's a passion of yours, maybe you just need to realize that value is more intrinsic than it is extrinsic for the people who could potentially buy into it. Like, if your audience isn't converting on what you're doing, then maybe it's not valuable enough. So instead of getting down on yourself, maybe you should try to take that as a sign that you need to readjust what you're doing.
Or work harder.
Or work harder, or find a different way of doing what you're doing to create that value.
The issue there, though, and just kind of being devil's advocate, but like we're in a marketplace that is exponentially growing. Like Instagram, millions, probably billions in the next 10 years. I think it might already, I don't know how many users there are, but like let's say there's 1 million people on there. You're essentially competing against all those people to get attention for whatever the heck you're doing. And whatever you're doing might be so valuable to you, like us. We find Boho Hobo to be valuable, but we're not garnering attention, so we're not going to be making money from it. And it's like, at the same time, millions more users are coming onto this platform. And then what? It's going to be oversaturated, and yes, we're sending these good messages that pursue your passion, like, you might be able to get finances off of it. But, like, realistically, how many of those billions of people on Instagram are actually going to be making money to support themselves? Not many.
Not many.
Not many at all.
No.
And so, like, that's another thing that I think about a lot, too, is, like, okay, if we've identified that this is what gives people fulfillment, is finding their passions, how can we do this so that everyone's still financially sustainable? Do we figure out a way to lower the cost of food and shelter so then they can just pursue their passion projects? Or do we find a way to make it so everyone is able to make money off their passion project? And I don't think that's realistic. And that's why I always like study future tech stuff, is because that's the issue that we're going through right now. We've identified how to gain human fulfillment, but it's not realistic that everyone can do it unless they're all financially sustained.
Right, and also until there's enough technology to take over like 90% of the work, there's always going to be a need for people to fill these 9-to-5 roles that maybe aren't like passion projects,
fulfilling, quote unquote,
but they're duties that need to get done, and there's people that will fill those roles.
Yeah.
So I think in a sense, no, having a passion, maybe having a passion does increase your value, your standard of living.
Yeah.
And it gives you more purpose in life, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone will be able to achieve that.
It's selfish, in a sense, at this point in our economy of advancement, I think it's selfish. Because it's like we still have jobs that humans need to go to, and it's like churning jobs to get the job done. And then you have all these people on Instagram that are making millions because they're garnering attention and living like this dream life. And then there's us that's like not even in the middle between that, more on just like the grind side.
Yeah.
But that's the reality, I think. So it's like maybe we're complaining about jobs getting taken by AI and robots and stuff like that. Maybe that's not a bad thing, because it's going to allow us to be able to all live these like Instagram like glorified lives.
I mean, the other thing is like those famous Instagram people, that's like few and far between, you know? Not that many people actually are living that style of life on the socials.
And even if they perceive themselves to be that way, then they might not.
Well, it's like an image
that
thing. It's always, like you said, like FOMO. So if everyone had the same ability to reach that level of being able to live this lavish lifestyle and stuff, then we'd all be chasing something else.
So they're setting the bar. They're setting the expectation.
They're setting an expectation that I just don't think is rooted in true value. It's just
hedonism.
Yeah, like numbers chasing, you know? It's an image. It's all about image and not about true intrinsic value.
I'm not necessarily saying that like these Instagram models is fulfillment. I'm saying that like pursuing a life where you're living for the creative process or your passion project or doing a craft that you actually enjoy doing, that would be fulfillment there. And having the self-awareness to identify with that. So, like, if that's the reality, is it possible to create a society where all of us can be pursuing that? And, I have hopes. Like, that's why I study future tech, is because you see that maybe technology can allow us as an economy to have that abundance, to be able to like meet all of these basic needs and resources so we can live those lives.
Pretty well said. I mean,
And that all right, so like to caveat now to like Tesla and stuff like that, I think this is a good opportunity to talk about it now. So like that's why if we're identifying that that's what humans want to do is live a fulfilling life, and we know what the blueprint is to live a fulfilling life, if let's say it is passion projects and stuff like that, and I think we're pretty close to understanding it. But the reason why I support Tesla so much is because they're moving us to an economy where we have sustainable energy, sustainable resources. So what Elon's doing is creating this network of like Tesla cars for the sole purpose of using them as tools to be able to create a sustainable world off of solar energy. And if he can do that, then think about what that does for us. We can live in houses now, run off of solar energy, be sustained by the sun,
and not have to pay.
And not have to pay for rent. You just pay the down payment, you live in a house. On top of that, you have transportation that's on a Tesla network. You could either buy the car, have it run off of solar energy, or you could buy into the Uber-like network that he's creating and just do ride-sharing services. So that covers two of your basic needs right there, transportation, where you're going to live. Now the next question is, like, what are we going to do to feed everyone and have that sustainable? And that's where I think, I don't know, us as entrepreneurs, me personally, like, that's what I think about all the time, is, like, how can I position myself to, like, push us towards that advancement of society?
Well, that's, I think, the golden ticket. That's the thing that takes you from it being a passion project into becoming something greater. Because, again, it's about value.
That would be hugely valuable.
What are you doing that's not only different from everyone else, but also providing value or solving a pain point for someone? So in that case, if finding the answer to that question, that would be something that I would consider answering, yeah.
Yeah, how can we create a sustainable system where everyone gets food, essentially? I don't think water is an issue. Like, we have a pretty sustainable mode of getting water. But another thing, too, with Tesla is because the cost of driving these automobiles is going to be far less because it's solar energy. You can just charge everything. The cost to deliver goods is going to drop tremendously lower. And so a lot of the foods that you get at the grocery store, like produce, the reason why it's costing so much more is because of the price of the transportation. So if that drops, food's going to get cheaper. And so maybe that would lend itself to having more abundance of our basic needs as well. But, like, that's why I think it's...
interesting thought.
The point I'm trying to make is why it's important to... Or why you would want to invest in Tesla, first off, is because it's going to have huge dramatic changes. Their big data is... You look at any tech company, the ones that win out are the ones that have the most data. The ones that have the most money are the ones with the most data. They're going to have the most data because they have fully autonomous vehicles, and they have the most amount of vehicles on the road. So that alone is going to be an investment opportunity. And then that's not even, like, considering the fact that it's going to do a lot of humanity good. Like, there's Starlink. That's another idea he has, which is going to give us all ability to have Wi-Fi because he's, like, shooting thousands of satellites. I don't know, like, the implications of that on the world, but
the only thing I can say about Tesla, to play devil's advocate and maybe be someone else's, like, opinion on it, I personally think that investing in Tesla isn't a bad idea because eventually there will be an idea that is successful that comes out of Tesla, that does like change things for humanity. But I do think a lot of people just see a company that has done some cool things, but hasn't necessarily changed the game completely yet. They haven't done anything that
What's your timeline?
Well, I'm saying since they started, I mean, Tesla's been around since for more than 10 years, so.
I think since 2007. I don't know.
So it's it's been a little while.
Yeah.
And other than, I'm not discrediting what SpaceX has done, but SpaceX isn't Tesla. It's a separate entity itself. So we're just talking about Tesla itself. Like Tesla itself, all that has come out of Tesla is solar roof tiles that haven't made a sweeping success across the country, and electric cars that also hasn't completely swept across the country. Like, they created an economy car that most people should be able to afford to buy, but still most people aren't buying that. Why not? What is it? And I think one, it's just the lack of infrastructure right now. We're trying to introduce electric cars when we don't even have a full answer to how it would make sense for everyone to have an electric car.
Right.
Because we're still reliant on oil and gas. So obviously it's going to be more convenient for people to get oil and gas than it is to get electricity to power your vehicle.
So, to hit on that point, you have to figure in that technology, the innovation of solar panels to produce solar power is becoming way more efficient. Every year there's a doubling effect that's happening. So, the cost of being able to create solar panels is decreasing, and the ability to extract energy from the sun is increasing. So that alone, with those two factors, and if it's doubling and exponentially expanding, then you have to figure that you definitely have to take that into account to consider that in 5 years' time. So price of solar is decreasing. The solar panels are getting more efficient. It's gonna be at a consumer price. The cost of their vehicles is gonna decrease. Like, they're trying to push for a consumer mid-sized car that's gonna be around $20,000. You have to figure that if they're gonna have a Tesla network, it's gonna destroy Uber. If you're gonna have all these cars that are fully autonomous, that are being run off of solar energy, that are driving everyone around at a fraction of the cost. So there's that.
But who cares about that? Because
it's the infrastructure. Think of the cars as not being the value prop. The value prop is that being an infrastructure to give us a reason to use solar energy now. It gives us a reason to buy solar panel roofs. What I'm saying
is, what I meant is, like, you were saying that it would put Uber and Lyft out of business, and it's like,
it could. But
it's like, okay, well, Uber and Lyft put taxi drivers out of business, so it's kill or be killed kind of thing.
So you're saying, how is this changing the world?
Yeah, like,
because
this solar. Is a natural. No. I'm saying, like, that. I was reflecting on that by saying, like, this is a natural thing that happens.
Yeah.
In the world where, for example, radio used to be the main source of media for most people, and then television happened, and then radio just slowly took a second place.
I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all.
But I'm saying, like, this is a cyclical thing where where this is the next idea, and then, another iteration of wherever this is going will come around in the next 5 to 10 years.
Definitely.
And then that next thing will put this.
Yeah, definitely. And it's important to identify those cycles if you're an investor, because you want to be able to time the market correctly, and you want to be able to invest in something that's going to be the change. And right now, that's most likely the change of where we're headed.
Yeah, or at least one of the changes.
One of the changes, I mean, there's Neuralink, there's SpaceX. We're going to be able to travel around the world with these
Oh, Hyperloop.
Yeah. Well, is that the jets?
No, that was
space
the
jets?
the underground like tunnel system.
Oh, the Boring Company. There's that. The tunnel system. There's the
It's crazy that it all comes from one person though. Like one person is spearheading all that.
Yeah. So it's like investing in Elon is probably going to be
the only thing
probably
though,
a wise thing to do because one of those things is going to work. Yeah, this is more so just like trying to make a point why I'm investing in that and why I think it's going to win out in the long run.
Yeah, what did you realize though?
I was running the numbers and I was looking at what happened with Apple.
Oh, that's what you did show me that.
And I was looking at like the 2008 happened, the crash, and then you look at the same trajectory that Apple had back in that time to what it was now, and it's like a similar like technology structure.
Yeah. And so far the graphs are showing a similar pattern.
Yeah, like we're gonna have a crash by January, and then that's gonna be a price point to buy. Apple, it got from 2008 to now, it's increased its share price by like 4,000%. And then you look at the S&P 500 from that time to now, it's only increased like 500, I think, from what I remember. So it's like, do I invest some of my money to Tesla, but most of it in like the regular total market, or do I just go all in on Tesla? And
it's like a high risk,
it's high risk,
high risk, high reward. Because in the sense that Tesla's stock is still going to be more expensive than most stocks.
Yeah.
But if it increases the way that we think it will, and you like
it changes
double
your life.
down,
it literally
on how
changes your
many
life.
shares you put in to have, and you just hold on to it and just trust that it's the right move.
Yeah. So like the way I'm thinking is, if I invest 20,000 into Tesla, and if I lose it all, okay, whatever. I just lost 20,000. That could have went to a car. Yeah, whatever. But like that sucks. But like, is it gonna change my standard of living? No. But if I do have that 4,000% increase, is that gonna change my standard of living? Yeah. Like you're gonna have close to 500K, and you could potentially live off like passive income from that investment. So it's like shit. Like, and then if you consider, I'm just gonna go invest in the S&P 500 and make 500%, like that's not even gonna be close to the
right. Like the S&P, I would say investing strictly in the S&P 500. Yes, in the if you're looking at it in the long play, it's the most.
That's another thing.
It's
What's
the
your
most
timeline?
it's the most consistent thing. Where like you're guaranteed to make a profit off of the S&P 500 over like a 30-year period. Just unless you're fucking 80 in the middle of like a global pandemic that starts a depression. Maybe now's not the time, but in most times like the S&P 500 returns a positive interest on your investment. So it's really more about right. Do you want money? Do you want to create value in the short term or the long term? Because I feel like investing in Tesla, you're investing in a short term financial gain. Like
because you don't know if it could get bought out or whatever. Right.
I would say like a 5 to 10 year, whereas like the S&P 500 would be more like a lifetime.
Yeah.
Investment where you're just gonna ride the market and you just ride the ups and downs, but over time it always just kind of goes up.
And we're young right now where it's like we can make that risk. Like from now to January, that's a good 6 months. If you just save in cash as much as you possibly can, you're going to have quite a bit of money to be able to like invest away. And you could just consider that, it's just money that I'm going to lose anyways.
Well, yeah.
And if you have that approach, it's like
money.
Shit.
It's money that you're probably going to end up spending on stuff that has momentary value. Yeah. As opposed to investing in something that initially may not bring you any value, but if you like hold true to the investment and you wait, it'll potentially pay off tenfold to what you initially thought,
like 50-fold.
Yeah. So that's something to think about.
I'm not even like fully disclosing all of my reasoning why I think Tesla is going to be like the next wave or the next thing that's going to change society, and yet you're still convinced that, oh, we're on a cycle, like that's going to be the next cycle. So it's like, if it's that obvious, then even more reason.
Well, then it's like you're not saying that Tesla is the answer. It's just a answer right now.
Yeah, like the whole point of
we
Elon,
could totally make a shit ton of money off of in the short term, and then maybe there's another business that comes around that we'll want to invest in 10 years from now that is doing other stuff that Tesla isn't doing.
I feel like I conceptually understand the blueprint to what a good innovative company looks like after like doing the research of Tesla and just like understanding the economy in general, that like we could potentially every 5 to 10 years just like look at these trends and see what's going to be the next big thing, what's going to dramatically change society. Mm-hmm. And like, no, I'm not saying that Tesla is going to like be the end all be all. I'm just saying that if you want to make a lot of money, invest in it. That's going to be the thing, and he's going to be the person that's going to be breaking the industry of like the fossil fuel, to like propel us closer to like sustainability. Because I think that's the ultimate goal. If all of us as humans can be sustainable off of our basic needs and not have to work, then that dream of everyone living their lives fulfilling, that could be possible. And that's why I support it.
Yeah, but also not everyone is going to invest in Tesla, so...
No, not at all. But like I said, it's just going to be the stepping stone to get us closer to that blueprint of like where we're headed as a humanity. And like if I ultimately believe that that's going to be the answer of everyone, like sustainability, everyone living their passion projects and stuff like that, then it's like now we know what the cycle's going to be like and know what to invest in. Because like if sustainability is the answer, then it's like, oh shit, like let's say Amazon's like releasing something like new big tech, allowing us to meet the basic needs of like the food in a sustainable way, then it's like, oh, maybe you should invest in that because that's going to be the thing. Yeah. And maybe it's not Amazon, but a new tech company.
I think more people should understand more about the market than they do.
Well, I think a lot of people like are in it for the greed, and they get caught up in the numbers, but they don't see the big picture as like where are we headed towards?
I'm just
what
saying
are we evolving
that
towards as a humanity?
Most people don't get into the stocks because of that. They get into stocks because they want to make a quick buck.
But like the whole reason the stock market, the whole reason why the market even exists is because people are creating value. It's a value exchange. So if you think what is the highest value for humanity, then you'll be able to know where the market's headed towards.
Right. I'm saying the disconnect is that most people don't think about it
that way. Yeah, I agree.
They just don't think about it at all.
They just think about how I can make a quick buck.
Right. They're not thinking about humanity. They're thinking about themselves.
And that's like the reason why 95% of people lose out on the market.
Yeah, because they're going at it with the wrong intentions.
But it's ironic because the people that do give a shit about humanity are the ones that could have probably more possibility of making money in the stock market if they're investing that with that thinking of like what's actually bettering humanity and not just what stock is going up next week in these penny stocks or some shit. And like the only way you can really get to that conclusion is like by understanding philosophy, psychology, sociology, economics, like the social sciences. Yeah, like if you can master social science, then you can master the market.
Yeah, definitely.
That's my thesis.
Definitely.
And like I've been having these thoughts lately. Like, why am I even doing, like, for the past 2 years, that's all I've been studying is, like, social sciences and stuff like that. I felt like it was pointless. And then it's, like, I kind of, like, had this realization that, oh, shit, like, I don't want to, like, have money being a reason why, but it's nice to know that all of this learning is an investment to possibly being able to understand the market to get money. So, I mean, that's a definite bonus. And, like, people always downplay social science as being, like, this pointless thing. But here we're identifying that if you are well-read on all of these concepts, then you would have a better likelihood of being able to get financial freedom.
Well, I think the reason that those subject areas are seen as, like, a waste of time or whatever is because most people study them, but they have no context to use those ideas for. Whereas, like, we've built context around why we would want to know more about it. Because we're talking to people. We're creating community. We're...
Like, entrepreneurship puts it in perspective.
We're engaging with humanity.
And that's how I felt for the longest time. Until, like, I stumbled upon investing in the stock market. And then I was, like, putting the two together. It's like, oh, shit, this makes sense now. Because the whole market is made out of people. So if you understand people, then you can understand the market. And it's like the idea of, like, knowledge is power. Like, I always heard that phrase and I was like, I don't get it. Like, how is knowing a lot of shit powerful? But, like, in a business sense, in this way, if you know a lot about the market, then you have influence. And hopefully you do it for the good. Reason. Yeah, for good.
No way to know if people will, but I guess if anyone, listens to this, maybe they'll take that from it is to think of the positive intentions that they could have and put them towards that.
Yeah, I mean, basically my conclusion to wrap this up is that social science is not pointless. There's a good reason why you should know it, and use it for good, not for evil.
Yeah, use it to inform decisions and better your life. And those around you.
Yeah.
And I think, like...
And even, like, investing in the stock market. Like, it's so easy to just, like, put in money. But if, like, I'm sitting here saying that these are the reasons why you should invest in Tesla, like, maybe you can get other people on that wavelength, not telling them what to do, but just, like, give them the information, and then they can make the well-informed decision.
Well, maybe even use that thought process in any investment. Is, like... Instead of it just being like, I'm just going to throw my money at this thing because I think it might make me money, maybe spend some extra time to think about what values it's bringing and why it would be actually worth...
Valuable.
Right, like I had to do this project in college. It was like my thesis, and it was picking companies and comparing them and deciding whether or not it would be worth investing in that company. And it wasn't simply... Let me just look at the graph I see on fucking Robinhood and use that to determine whether or not I'm going to...
Make a good investment.
An investment into buying some shares. It's like, no, like I literally spent like days and days researching the company's history. Like, what are their values? What are they trying to do for humanity? How do they do for sales? Like, it took everything into account. Then I was able to make an educated decision on whether or not it would be worth investing in.
Yeah.
And it's just
agreed.
like,
100%.
do we all have enough time to sit down and go through that to make that decision? No. But if you feel strongly about an investment, maybe you should spend the time to, like, make sure that it's what you think it is.
Yeah.
Because you may do research and find out that that company that you think is, like, the best shit since sliced bread has, like, this dark underlying things that they've been up to as a company that you don't identify with. And then you're like, maybe this will come back to haunt my investment later on, Yeah,
I think a lot of it is because people are in the short-term game. And they're not trying to understand, like, what's valuable for humanity at large. And, like, why does humanity even exist? Like, what is the purpose of humans? Like, where are we headed towards? And all the stuff that we ask in our podcast. Like, what does it mean to be human? Like, understanding human values and stuff. That's so important in the long game.
Yeah.
And this is a practical example of it. Is you could potentially make more money in your investments if you align yourself with moral beliefs.
Yeah, I would just say to not feel like you can't learn stuff about about, that you can't learn about stuff like this. The internet is literally at everyone's fingertips for the most part. Use it as a tool to your advantage. Yeah. Maybe that's not necessarily getting into stocks, but maybe it's something else that provides value to life. But, like, spend the time to, like, figure out if it's worth investing in or not.
Yeah.
Before just,
it's not even businesses. It's investing your time in what you want to do with your life.
Yeah, basically. like I was saying before, like, being more sensitive to the time you have available and not feeling like you're wasting time. So using your time in a more efficient manner so that you feel more fulfilled. It's like, find the value, spend the time to, like, identify what the values are, and then, triple down on those. Mm-hmm. Instead of just, like, half-assing. Because when you half-ass, then you end up, like, not following through with it. Whether that's, I'm going to come home from work every day and work for 2 hours on my brand. It's like, if you don't spend the time to fully find the value that you're getting out of spending that 2 hours, maybe you don't end up spending 2 hours a day after work over time. Because you're not attaining that level of value that you set an expectation in your head of. Whereas if you just spend the time to, like, identify the value that's true to come from it, then you'll be able to, like, double down on it.
Yeah, it's figuring out what's actually valuable and not what's just for greed and your 7 deadly sins.
Yeah, literally. But there's always going to be people who are going to chase the money, so it's like we're not sitting here.
But the thing we're identifying here is, like, you can make money if, in the long run, if you're being moral.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that there's always two sides to the coin, and there will always be people who, no matter how much you say to do this a certain way, will still find a way to do it the wrong way. Well, who's to say what's right or wrong, but, like, maybe the less just and moral way.
Well, I think this is a new conversation that people aren't having, is, like, everyone is equating having a lot of money with greed and stuff like that, but we're identifying here that you can kind of flip that narrative. I mean, Gary Vee always talks about it, like, nice guys win in the short term, maybe, but in the long term, they win out for life, kind of thing. It's just hard to, it's hard to make that conclusion, though. But we like to think so. I don't know. Yeah. Do you have any other stuff you want to talk about?
I was just gonna conclude, because we kind of talked about a lot of stuff, including, like, just kind of reflecting on the brand. I would just say, as, like, an update to those listening, that really if you go back and listen to our first podcast, listening to this right now, probably we just sound a lot more like we understand what the hell we're doing, or we're finding value in the things that we are doing on a daily basis for the brand. But I would say, like, at least for me, like, right now I'm really just trying to double down on video editing, creating content, and finding avenues where I can continue to build that skill set, whether that's with Boho Hobo or through other projects. And that we're not going away just because COVID-19 may be putting a halt in some of our regularly scheduled events. Pretty much every business and artist has events that got put on hold because of this. So, like, we're just going to continue to make content and stay relevant. And I think that comes with doing more podcasts in the Gear Factory and spreading those messages, since we all live with those people. So it's not like we're breaking quarantine rules, and we're staying safe. And then going out and finding other means of creating content through social isolation, in a sense. Like, physical isolation of people.
Yeah, and for me, I'm just going to keep working on creating value in myself and for the brand and pursuing what's meaningful and not what's expedient. Not getting caught up in distractions, like not even like focusing on COVID, because that's just like anxiety and it's inevitable. Like we have COVID here upon us and there's not much we can do about it, but focusing on what I can do, and that's, like I said, creating value myself by increasing my skill set, whether it's through my health, through investments with like Tesla, through my skills in the creative process with filming. I'm learning how to play the piano now. So music production could be another avenue. Yeah, overall just trying to find fulfillment in what we're doing.
I think...
Because that's a good guide to identify with, like, I think what's valuable. And not, like I said, not getting caught up in the distractions of, like, short-term reward, but looking towards the future of what could be and what could bring value to other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is something that doesn't happen often. This period of just, society on halt, kind of.
Oh, and keep learning. I'm going to always keep learning.
And I think that, those listening should think about using this time as a gift, almost. Yes, it's shitty that we have to be careful when we go out into public, but we're all being given a lot of time to sit and think about what values do we have in our life currently, and how can we optimize those values, or how can we find values in the things that we're doing to better your life, to rid yourself of anxieties, and maybe find fulfillment in the things that you're doing or the things that you want to do.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with people have to find opportunities. Finding opportunities in the long term, that if you put in the effort, that it could be a possibility that outweighs the struggle and suffering that you're currently in.
Yeah.
And people need a big enough vision, or people need a vision at least, to get out of that hole.
Well, I mean, only time will tell. I guess we're just sharing our perspective, but if you feel like your anxiety is taking over your thoughts and you just want answers but you can't find them, sometimes it's a good idea to do something like I did today. Find a way to escape from those thoughts, accept their existence, put them aside, and take all judgment away from the situation. And then you may find an answer to what you're looking for.
And anxiety is an energy. It's an active energy, and you can either use that to sit with, to like get fearful, or you can use it as a utility purpose and like find ways to put that energy into that can better you in the long-term future.
Well, it's also a key to unlocking the understanding of yourself, because anxiety is an energy rooted in reaction to something happening. So if you can sit and think about, why am I having this anxiety? Where is this coming from? What's causing this anxiety? Find the root of the anxiety and then identify its existence. Yeah. And think about what's the story behind that. Like, why, not only what is causing the anxiety, but why is it causing the anxiety? Yeah. What things have you been telling yourself about that situation that in return is causing you to feel stressed out and anxiety about whatever it may be? And it's like, for example, a lot of people are having anxiety about COVID and like the future of what it could present. But it's all hearsay or guessing. None of it, we don't know what it's going to do. we can only prepare for what it could do. So that sense of uncertainty creates anxiety because we don't know what it will do. So
Right.
we're creating a future scenario that we don't even know will actually ever come to fruition.
And it's a story that's rooted in pessimism. It's a story that's rooted in suffering, in negativity. So, like, I'm identifying with what you're saying right now is we have two stories that we can choose to go down, not actually physically, but, like, in our heads.
Right.
It's the story of pessimism or the story of optimism. And you can either feed into the mass media in all of the pessimism and the negativity and all the reasons why you should do nothing about your life or like to stay rooted in that despair, or you can create a compelling enough story to go down that will give you reward, opportunity, abilities, experience. And that's the issue is like there's not enough conversation going around with compelling enough stories. And the only one that I can find on a humanities perspective in the short term is Tesla. But like, I think humanity needs those things. And a lot of the times is that the compelling stories, they're not rooted in reality. And that's the issue, is they're just distractions away from the stories of pessimism that we're experiencing. But we need a compelling enough story of optimism rooted in reality to give people opportunities or like a reason to pursue self-development or like to get out of that hole. And we don't have that. And like I'm identifying now, like Boho Hobo could be a platform to do that, to produce content that's rooted in reality, that gives people a sense of like, damn, I should like go out and like better my health, or I should try to put forth the effort to develop my skill set. Like having this idea of like maybe in the future we'll have a sustainable world and it's going to be very important for you to have personal development gives people a possibility right in this reality right now that maybe it's important to work on myself because in the future it's going to be more valuable, it's going to be more needed, or at least I'll have the opportunity to work on it more because my basic needs are met, kind of thing.
Yeah, and again, not everyone's going to do that. And,
not at all. But we at least need the narrative.
We're definitely more like first adopters of this idea, where a lot of other people won't come to this conclusion until things are a little bit more clear in terms of societal means for...
Because we're stuck in COVID and we have that narrative of the world's ending.
Well, we're having foresight of optimism towards the fact that this isn't permanent and that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to be prepared when that happens to get back to like what we were doing.
Yeah.
Whereas other people need literally COVID disappearing before they could think about certain things in that light.
Because it's short-term thinking, and it's hard to think long-term, especially if you're not like wired that way.
Well, yeah, I think it's just because we're all taught not that way. We aren't taught to think that way. So
yeah,
it's
because
learned.
it almost seems pointless that. So like we are taught not to think long-term, I think. Or no, maybe it's not even that. It's like our human nature causes us to think short term because we need to appeal to those emotions. And we need a higher conscious processing in our brain to think long term. Because you have to
because
see the bigger picture.
Emotions aren't you, they're happening to you. So identifying that you don't need to feed into emotions in the moment all the time is a great way to like step away from that.
And that's what meditation does.
Yeah, you're identifying emotions that you're feeling, you're finding the root of those emotions, and then you're acknowledging them, and then you're letting them go. And you're just being okay with where you're at.
Yeah, that's basically
That's essentially, at least that's what I got out of the meditation I did today, is that you come back to this sense of reality and like peace for a time until these uncertainties and beliefs start to kind of crawl back, and you have to like, meditation's kind of like you're like boxing to get like energy out. You're taking these things that are annoying you and you're doing something to push them away. And you feel better afterwards. You're like, okay, like I needed that. Now I feel like my mind is straight and I can focus on the things I need to focus on.
Yeah, it just gives you that period to like let it run through you.
Yeah. Like I definitely want to start doing meditations like once a day for a little while and see if just my overall like anxiety level decreases, because I felt better afterwards, like after doing it. And I don't do it enough, so I'm going to use this COVID time to spend more time like looking introspectively and finding the roots of my anxieties and dealing with some demons, I guess. Maybe not demons or things that I've...
A lot of insecurities.
There's just...
Essentially it.
It's just being just more one with myself, yeah.
Or it's a lot of it's like accepting all of
acceptance.
it too.
Acceptance of feelings and not placing judgment or making fabricated stories around those things to dictate my behavior. And instead just acknowledging the existence of those things, accepting it, and then just letting them go. Essentially.
By doing that, do you accept the behaviors? If these perceived negative behaviors that you're doing.
By meditating, I'm avoiding those negative behaviors.
Do you accept them?
I mean, I accept that they could happen.
So, by telling yourself that you have the expectation to stop, are you saying you expect to stop the negative behaviors? Because by making that expectation, then you don't accept yourself.
No. I'm using it to avoid certain behaviors because I'll understand why I'm feeling a certain way. So instead...
If you're avoiding it, though, then how are you accepting it?
You don't have to endure something.
So let's say one of your behaviors... No, I'll just speak for myself. What if one of my behaviors is chewing my fingers? My family hates it. My perceived girlfriend hates it. The world hates it. And yet I still do it. Do I change my behavior and stop chewing on my fingers? Or do I just accept that that's what I do and be okay with it? You get what I'm saying?
I mean, it depends on how you feel about it. If you feel that it's bringing a negative source of energy into your life, then yeah, maybe you need to find the root of why you do that and then stop doing it.
But the only reason why I am insecure about it is because the world is telling me not to chew my fingers. But me, myself, I didn't realize it was a problem until everyone told me that it was a problem.
Well,
and so if I accept it, then I just isolate myself.
I mean, that's the thing. Everyone has free will to decide that, whether or not.
So that's another thing too, is like understanding if the behavior that you're doing is something that is worth changing.
Yeah. And not because someone told you to do it, but because you firmly believe that it is the right thing to do. Maybe someone telling you that you should or shouldn't do something planted a seed for you to think about it, but you shouldn't use that opinion to inform your decision. You should use that to make you sit and think introspectively about it and decide for yourself what you're going to do.
That's fair.
Because your life is different than mine, and just as much as mine is different than the next person. So who is there, who are they to say that
what you're doing is wrong?
Right or wrong? Well, to an extent. Obviously, like if you're like killing people or something crazy, then yeah. they have a right to say that. But
Yeah.
with certain things, it's like, that's your opinion.
So you either accept it or I'm leaving. You could do it that way too.
Well, you don't have to. It's not like that black or white. It could.
Yeah, it is.
No. Yeah, I'm saying like
it's so that black and white. Like if I'm chewing my fingers and everyone hates that I do it, but I don't give a shit. I've accepted it. That's just what I do. Like you can deal with it. You cannot deal with it. If they don't accept me, I could either walk away, not have to deal with any of them, or realize that maybe my family is more valuable and maybe this chewing my fingers kind of thing needs to stop so I can have my family.
What I'm saying is those two things are true, but there's a gray area in the middle where it's you're not necessarily accepting one or the other. All I'm saying is that person saying that biting your fingernails is bad is opening up a discussion, an internal dialogue where you're now going to think about it.
Okay.
Is this the right thing or wrong thing?
But like in the practical world, if anything's gonna happen, it's either I leave, they accept me for chewing on my fingers, or I stop. That's the gray area. That's the middle area. Is them accepting. In certain
scenarios, but like biting your fingernails, people aren't gonna like oust you from their life because you bite your fingernails. That's just an example.
So all right, let's say
in an extreme example, yes, you would have to accept or walk away. But I'm saying in most cases, it's going to be more like someone has a negative opinion about something that you do, and then you're going to have the choice of whether or not to accept it or not, but you still have time to like think about it before you make that decision. You're not just like, I have to make this decision right now or I'm going to literally get like disowned from my like family or whatever.
No, I'm not saying there's urgency to this at all. I'm saying there's three options. It's either you leave that person, you stay in it and stop doing what you're doing, or you keep doing it and they accept you.
Yeah.
So that's all that needs to be really thought about. Like, you can have this dialogue and stuff like that, but ultimately those are the three things that's going to happen.
Right. And I guess
I
was just saying that, like, acceptance of either continuing or acceptance of stopping isn't going to be an instantaneous thing. It's for most things. It's going to take hearing that opinion to create an internal dialogue that then you're going to deal with until you come up with a conclusion as to what you're going to do.
But that's the thing too, is if you don't do anything and you just stay in that situation, again, taking this situation with chewing fingernails, if I just sit here and think about it all the time and I'm just still doing this behavior, eventually it's going to get to a point where they have to accept it or they leave me too. That's their option.
Yeah.
So it's
like anything.
It's like no matter how much you think about it, it's...
What are we getting at with this?
Behavior change, like acceptance. A lot of it is like we create expectations for ourselves that we need to change behaviors, but we're not accepting the behavior to begin with. Like, that's the whole point of meditation, is like accepting the good and the bad. We set expectations for ourselves when we're like, I want to meditate so I can be this perceived better version of myself.
Well,
the whole point of meditation is to accept yourself. I don't
think it's to make yourself a better person. I think it's just a tool to help you understand yourself more.
Yeah. That's fair.
You're not like learning a new skill or
I'm just heated
or creating external value when doing that. All you're doing is becoming more secure in yourself.
Yeah.
That's why you meditate, to be more
But it gets misconstrued, and that's why I get heated about this.
Well, that's coming from those fake deep people who see it as this like wishy-washy like spiritual thing, when really all it is you're searching for meaning in yourself.
And you're trying to make yourself better, but you're
just trying to be like more secure in your behaviors.
It's like it's so easy to justify certain behaviors. by like approaching it from this like wishy-washy spiritual way. And like your behavior might be acceptable, like that it might be okay, but like what if it isn't? What if you're killing people, right? And you're just using the spirituality force as this like, oh, I was told I should do this, or like God was telling me I should do this kind of thing. I don't know, I'm getting off topic. But like, I don't know, I just like really want to be clear with the fact that in order to accept yourself fully, to fully understand and accept yourself, you have to be able to sit with the fact that there are behaviors that you have that are perceivably negative and perceivably positive. And we're not just trying to change ourselves to be this all-time positive behavior person all the time. And that's what I've, just from my experience of seeing what's out there on the web, that's what it's lending itself to, is that you need to be this perceivably positive person all the time.
Well, and
that like suppresses demons too.
I mean, I brought this up in the last podcast that JP, who was on like episode 46 or something, brought it up that it shouldn't be a goal to reach that level of all perfectness, because then that's the baseline. And then what? Then where do you go? Then you're probably just going to create even more anxiety and depression because you've reached this level of like perfect.
Yeah, and now you have to maintain that.
And then perfect is no longer perfect. And then what? You're just like, I don't know. There's a lot of good a good introspective conversation to be had coming out of this conversation, you know? For the listeners, for me, for you, to like step back and think about everything that we're saying and internalize it into like our own personal narratives on what's happening to us individually. And
that's what a lot of it is, like thinking for yourself.
Like, it's great that we talk about all this stuff, but at the end of the day, like, you're going to have to sit with your own thoughts and take this information and use it as a tool to guide yourself through your own life experience. Right, and
definitely don't take this all verbatim. Or
no,
like
it's just
the
more
rule
like,
to live life by.
Just take some of it as a perspective on the issue of like anxieties and progression in life and that feeling of am I doing enough or am I not, and all those things play together. But I think sticking to those three things, like finding a skill that you can be good at, a passion that can tie into that skill to give you meaning for learning that skill, and then understanding who it is that you are. Like tying those three things together and then just like tripling down on them, you may like unlock a sense of fulfillment in life.
It's a good place to end. Namaste.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next episode.